So that's the first thing we're going to be talking about today is microsats and what that looks like. Because it is something that is very weird to try to explain, try to understand. And I had a hard time this morning. I was trying to figure out the best way to do this. But this is kind of what I came up with here in terms of two things. When will we be using microsats? When will we make that transition? At what point? And the second part is that when that happens, will it actually be inflation? His comment was, if we move into a microsat or move the decimal farther, it seems like that's the only way to produce excess inflation. So what point does that happen? And will that produce inflation? That's what we're going to talk about in this first question here. So I got a little scenario. I think that's the best way to do things. I had like a little chart here, but it wasn't very useful. So we got a real life scenario here. This is a landscaping company. They're called Jajo Landscaping. So they did a $44,000 landscaping job. For that, they immediately turned it into, this is US, 44,000 US landscaping job. Nice full putting green, full backyard pool. No, maybe not a pool. 44,000 might not get you too far nowadays. But for that, they earned 1.04 Bitcoin approximately. So what that looks like today is they would each get their split 51 million sats. And you can see these numbers here. I think this should be, maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. There we go. So after their split, Jay and Johnny each get approximately 51 million sats today. It's 0.5175496. That's their split off of their job. In 2044, I just use this as an example, 20 years away from now. The exact same thing. But at that time, we don't know what the price of Bitcoin is going to be. So what happens when you move the decimal place? So you can see here, if you're listening to this later, we added about 6 or 7 or 8 decimal points here. So now it turned into 0.517549637715254. So the key there is that the Bitcoin didn't increase. The value didn't change. We just moved the decimal place there. It's the exact same number. But what we have to figure now is when that happens. And I think the only time that would ever happen when we keep moving decimal places is when people actually start valuing those. So an example I would give in more of a smaller scale here is that King Golf, our golf company, we accept Bitcoin for our products. So currently, if somebody wants to pay in Bitcoin, say the price of the products or the value of the products is $150. So today, what I would say is I wouldn't go down to all these decimal points because I don't value those microsats yet. So I would probably just round up and say $150. Let's just say it's 50,000 sats. That's not right, but let's just say that's what it is. So that's what I would round up to because I don't actually value those microsats yet. There might be a day where we do, but I think that that's quite a ways away. So the first part is that when that happens, basically how that happens is that people basically need to value those microsats. That's the only time we'll start moving decimal points because they're so insignificant right now compared to our current purchasing power that nobody values those microsats, even though they're there. As we can see here, in that number, they're still there, but nobody is putting a value on those yet. So nobody goes that far down the decimal points. So that's one aspect of it. How that happens is we have to value those microsats. And another part of that is that the wallets, they'll actually have to change their units of measurement as well because they're not set up for that right now. They pretty much just round up because nobody values those microsats yet. That's what we have to keep in mind here. So in order to get to a microsat world, they'd have to be valuable enough, and the wallets would actually have to be functionable to support that because currently they don't. They just round up. because nobody values those microsats. They're still there, but we don't value them yet, so they're not relevant. So that's the first part of the question. The second one is that going to increase, or is that going to have excess inflation? And the answer, after looking at that, is no, it doesn't change anything. The 21 million Bitcoin will never change. It's fixed, it's scarce, and it's set for that based on the Bitcoin code. So that won't increase inflation. It just changes, it just moves the decimal point. And it allows us to have more units of account to pay for things, because as more and more people show up here in Bitcoin, we're going to have to keep expanding the decimal point, because the bottom line, the denominator there, supply, is fixed. That's why that happens. And that's why that's different from our current financial system, where we actually have inflation. So we don't have to keep moving the decimal point. We can just print more money. Hope that makes sense.